Hello, everybody. It's Brainy Diode, and this is something entirely new that I have not tried before. I'm gonna try this video without any sort of script. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head here. I did come up with some points I want to throw out before I got started, but for the most part, I'm making this up as I go along. The idea behind this is, first of all, I have felt that a lot of my videos have been a bit too textbooky, and while I hope they've been interesting while still being textbooky, as I would say, I wanted to kind of get away from that, and I wanted to kind of feel like I'm talking to people because while there's a time and place for textbook-esque learning, I think that people oftentimes go on YouTube, if they even want to learn at all, to be entertained while they learn. And I think that a format like this is it's a lot easier to entertain people through a format like this. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing on my channel. I should mention I do actually have a current video in the works that I've already recorded all of the voiceover for. That's all done. I'm going to try to sync that up to music, throw some images in with it, and send that out there, hopefully within the next couple weeks. But I wanted to get this video out there soon for reasons that I think will become obvious once I begin talking about my main topic, which is the monks in the most recent Doctor Who episode, which was, if I remember correctly, called Extremis, and that will be appearing again in Pyramid at the End of the World this weekend, and if I understand correctly, will be appearing once again in The Lie of the Land the weekend after that. So the monks are a bit of a hot topic right now. I hope that this doesn't just sail under the radar and nobody realizes what I'm talking about. But the thing I want to talk about is how the monks will affect the series as a whole. I know that I don't do a lot of reviews on this channel. I more talk about theories and ideas and applying science to stuff. But right now I want to talk briefly about Extremis, the most recent Doctor Who episode, and how I really liked the plot twist at the end of Extremis. And if you haven't seen that, I won't spoil it for you now, but for me, that really set up the monks as very threatening villains, very intelligent villains that will really push the Doctor to his wits' end. I mean, the Doctor is often set up to be a very intelligent character, but I think the monks have been portrayed as villains that are very able to counter that intelligence that the Doctor possesses. And the trailers for Pyramid at the End of the World have got me really excited for that episode. It looks like the monks' intelligence is going to be developing even further in that episode. They look like they have a really devious master plan that I can't wait to see how it plays out and how the Doctor is going to stop this one. Or I think it would be really interesting to see even a loss for the Doctor, similar to what happened in Sleep No More, but I'll admit I really very much dislike that episode. That's probably the only Capaldi episode thus far that I can honestly say that I've disliked. Yes, I didn't even mind In the Forest of the Night all that much. It wasn't great, I'll give you that, but I didn't like detest it or anything. But this episode seems like it's going to be, or this not episode, but series of episodes seems like it's going to be a really big deal in the mythos. And that's what I wanted to bring up as the main point of this video. Are the monks going to be Capaldi's sort of trademark villain? I feel like each Doctor in the modern series thus far has had a villain that has really been attributed to them, really been connected to them, that has had a fairly big impact on either the mythos of the show or the fandom of the show. For example, with Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, it was the reintroduction of the Daleks. I'll go ahead and count that because a lot of modern series fans had never seen the classic series before the 2005 reboot. So this, through Eccleston's Doctor, was their first experience with the Daleks, and obviously the Daleks are a huge trademark of the series, a huge staple of the series, and the series wouldn't really be the same without them. Now, a lot of fans will argue, and I am one of them, that the Daleks have kind of gone downhill as of late, but nonetheless, they are a really big part of the series, and their reintroduction during Eccleston's era was an enormous part of that. To this day, probably my favorite episode in the entire series that still focuses entirely on the Daleks is Dalek, their introduction in Christopher Eccleston's era, and that monster has gone on to be, not even gone on to be, but it already was, but it became, through that episode and through Eccleston's Doctor, a huge staple of the modern series, just like they were for the classic series. Now, David Tennant, his monster is obvious. His era was responsible for the reintroduction of the very iconic Cybermen, but I feel like David Tennant's signature monster was most definitely the Weeping Angels. And I realize that Matt Smith had double the number of episodes with Weeping Angels that Tennant did, but I still feel like without Blink, which I believe many fans still think is the best Weeping Angels episode yet, with Blink, the Weeping Angels were introduced to us as Doctor Who fans, and they became a big, scary force that opposed the Doctor. And once again, I will admit that I kind of think they've gone downhill as of late. They've sort of become not really villains, but more a fan service, just like the Daleks have. And that's to a huge detriment to their characters, because they were really interesting villains in the episodes that they've shown up in. Continuing on, Matt Smith's trademark villain, I don't think anyone would argue that would definitely be the Silence. The Silence already, when they were introduced, were built up to be a recurring villain. And they most certainly have. Now, I think that now that Matt Smith's era is over, we will be seeing very little, if any, from the Silence moving forward. But nonetheless, I feel like they've had a very big impact on the mythos of the show, and if I understand correctly, a lot of fans find them to be some of the most threatening villains in Matt Smith's era that were introduced in that era. And I really can't think of any other villains from Matt Smith's era that had a very big impact on the show. I mean, the Silurians were reintroduced there, but they've only really shown up as villains that one time. And the Zygons were reintroduced there, but they also were from the classic series. Now, I know that I excuse that with the Daleks, but, I mean, even in the Zygons case, they weren't really introduced for Matt Smith's era. They were reintroduced for the 50th anniversary special. So in that case, I really wouldn't even count the Zygons at all in this discussion. Which leaves us with Capaldi's Doctor. And if we look back on Capaldi's Doctor, some of Capaldi's most famous episodes, it started with Listen, which really didn't have a monster to speak of, so we're probably not going to be seeing anything like that again anytime soon. We had Flatline, and we had Heaven Sent, which both had amazingly terrifying villains, but I don't really think that those villains really lend themselves to reappearing later on in the show. That's not really something... The writers would be hard-pressed to find a new way to keep those villains fresh in a new episode. And, I mean, the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion were pretty famous and pretty popular Capaldi episodes too, but the Zygons had already been reintroduced in that series. so they don't really count as a new trademark villain for the Doctor. And now that Capaldi's run is almost up, he's leaving the show at the end of 2017, are we going to be left without a signature Capaldi villain? I mean, I really hope not. I suppose you could make the argument that the Monda Cybermen are coming back at the end of this season. That has been confirmed. And if they do wind up becoming a staple in the series, which, to be honest, I'm kind of iffy about. I kind of doubt that they'll be appearing too much beyond this season finale. But if they do, I suppose you could argue that they are kind of separate entities from the Cybermen we've seen in the modern series thus far, so I suppose you could say that they might wind up being the Capaldi signature villains. But with the monks, they've been set up as such intelligent, brilliant villains, such threatening, spine-chilling villains, that I really think the writers wouldn't have too much difficulty bringing them into a future episode in a completely different way than we're going to see them in this one. I just gestured to my TV, not that you could see that. I just thought that was kind of humorous to mention. Anyway, the monks, with their level of intelligence and with their level of planning, could easily come up with an entirely new plot that we could not even expect the monks to be behind until they have some sort of big reveal. I almost feel like this is the new series reintroduction of the Sontarans all over again. I will admit, I actually did quite enjoy Sontaran Stratagem and Poison Sky. Those were a couple of my favorites back in season 4, and I feel like this is almost going to be one of those where you have villains in a multi-part episode that have clearly put a lot of thought and effort into this plan, and they're really keeping the Doctor on his toes in this case. So I really hope that the monks don't turn into another Sontaran situation where, other than the Pandorica opens and Big Bang, we haven't really seen the Sontarans as villains since their initial reintroduction back in season 4. And I'm not even sure I would consider the season 5 finale, considering that the Sontarans were mixed up with a bunch of other enemies of the Doctor that haven't really appeared since. So the point is, I really hope that the monks don't turn into a missed opportunity like that, because it really seems like the writers in these 3 episodes are building up some major villains that could pose a major threat, and I don't know for sure, but for now, I really hope that this episode's going to continue going as well as Extremis did, and I really hope that if it does, the monks show up later in the series. So that was my new video format thing, just a little discussion about one of my favorite shows out there right now and what's going on with it right now. So if you like this format, let me know, I guess. If you prefer the just kind of scripted textbooky talk format, also let me know, because this channel's still pretty new. I'm still figuring out what I'm doing with it. So I would appreciate any feedback that I get from you guys. So let me know what you like, let me know what you don't like, let me know what you think of the monks, and I will see you in a future video. Got another Doctor Who one coming out soon, like I said at the beginning of the video. Yes, that is about Doctor Who. I didn't mention that before. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you guys enjoyed that one, and I'll see you when that one comes out.